Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm Vinny Costa, editor of Street Muscle Magazine and your host of the RodCAST, the all-encompassing car show where we talk about all things automotive. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Greg Acosta, editor of Engine Labs and the all-around tech guru. What's up, Greg?
Not much, man. How are you?
Good, man. I'm excited for today's episode. We've had this one on our boilerplate for a while, even before our brief hiatus. We took 2 weeks off, as you guys know, during the holiday break, and so now we're back, and we have our first official guest of, I guess, the new season, right?
Yeah, I guess technically this would be a new season, I think.
Yeah, I think we can call it a new season. Have we reached that point? Second season? Wow. But yeah, so he's none other than Terry Karges. He's the executive director at the Petersen Automotive Museum. I was trying to get the whole title correct. So he's the executive director at the Petersen Automotive Museum. It's an institution in Southern California, in LA. If you're a car person and you were visiting, it's definitely a destination. Unfortunately, due to COVID-related stuff, they've had their doors closed for a while, but they're doing some really new, interesting things with their digital front, and we're going to talk to Terry about that today. So
yeah, man, you got to adapt. Think about that. You got to adapt. You're a museum. You are based on large groups of people, you know.
Yeah.
But they've done a decent job of adapting, and I hope it continues, and it shows in keeping them going, because we're not going to lose them.
They have a killer marketing team over there, and they've done a great job of being dynamic and pivoting and just creating content for car people everywhere. And it's stuff that you can be involved in. And before we even get into the episode, I will advise all of you to go check out petersen.org or the petersenmuseum.org and check out their site, check out everything they have going on, sign up for their newsletter, and just get involved, because this is something that's near and dear to our hearts. We want it to be around for a really long time, and we want to support them in any way we can. With that, I'll say, let's go ahead and bring them on, Greg.
All righty.
Terry Karges, everybody. How are you, sir?
I'm doing really, really good here. I'm in Los Angeles. Great weather. I walked down on the beach this morning about 6 o'clock, watched the sun come up. Perfect day. Wonderful time to be alive.
That's fantastic. I did a little bit of research on you, as I do for most of my guests. And I found out that you grew up around the Torrey Pines area. Is that correct?
I went to spent my summers in La Jolla. My grandmother lived there, and we moved from Joliet, Illinois in 1955. If you can imagine, there was nobody out here to Newport Beach, but Grandma was in La Jolla, so we were down there most weekends and then most of the summer.
That's awesome. Well, the reason I bring it up is because I'm in Carlsbad, and the weather has just been amazing. So when you say you walked on the beach this morning, I think yesterday it was 75 degrees most of the day.
Yeah, and surfing at Swami's, come on, it doesn't get any better, really.
Oh yeah. But so Terry, before we jump into it, I think we should kind of discuss your title, what your role is, where you currently work, and then we can get into that personal history, because you really do have a very interesting personal history. So
thank you.
Why don't you tell our audience what your official title is at the Petersen, and what it is you do there?
I'm the executive director at the Petersen Automotive Museum here in Los Angeles. And I've been here now. I came in August of 2012. And in October of 2014, we closed the museum for 14 months and spent $95 million to totally renovate and transform the museum, really, and opened 14 months later, December 5th of 2015. And actually since then, well, the fun part was that we added, like I say, we gutted the museum and started all over again. We ended up with 11 galleries in the museum. And so one of the fun parts about what we do is change out each gallery every year with a new exhibit. And so as a matter of what has been created since then is that in the past 5 years, we've been voted world's best automotive museum twice. And this year, not only for the exhibits, but for all of the online and the content and the things that the team has done.
Well, Terry, I mean, you ask most people, and SoCal is like the mecca for car culture and hot rodding. So it comes as no surprise to hear that, especially, somewhere as so prolific as the Petersen. And I want to hear the story on how you got there, how you've been a lifelong car guy, and you just touched on it a moment ago where you grew up. But how did all that snowball into where you're the executive director at the Petersen?
In Newport Beach in the late 50s, there was a circular drive-in, Merle's Drive-In, and all the guys from Orange County, the best cars from Orange County were in there Friday and Saturday night in the summer. And then the really badass cars would come down from Pasadena, Altadena, and then we'd go up the road and drag race there. But I mean, drag racing was everything in the late 50s, early 60s. And drag racing, the first official drag race was at the what is now the Orange County John Wayne Airport, and that was in '54. But and then you had Colton, there were drag strips everywhere. Then they built Irvine, Raceway, Long Beach Lads was running, the stuff that was going on. So brilliant cars, and it was what you did on Friday, Saturday night. If you weren't at the track, you were on some road someplace drag racing. So hot rod culture was there, but also sports car culture was there. And in '55, you talked about Torrey Pines and La Jolla. We went to a road race at Torrey Pines, which was on what was at that time an old naval air base, but like a scouting base, nothing to do with flights, or they didn't have a landing strip or anything. But that was one of the first official real road races in the US, and they had everything there. In fact, Phil Hill went on to be world champion, was there in a D-Jag. Dan Gurney in his first ever race in a sports car in a TR3. And the fun part about all of the things that were going on, even with the European sports cars, is that those cars were being run by hot rodders. In fact, the Pebble Beach road races, the famous Pebble Beach road races, were initially European cars, but then hot rodders started figuring out, wait a minute, you got this lightweight little car. What if we put some bigger tires on it and an American V8 in it, get some power? And then, things evolved. Riverside Raceway opened in 1957, which was real European cars of every stripe, and the best best drivers in the world were there. And then NASCAR came, and Gurney beat everybody because he was a sports car racer, but he was also, running stock cars for the Wood brothers. But again, it was everywhere. It was part of life. One of our best friends, a guy named Jim Busby, he used to have a little house that had a white carpeting, shag carpeting, but he was also he ran a double-8 top fuel car. And first time we went over to see him, he had the whole engine apart on the rug. It was, there's no garage. This is in the house. This is what you do. But that was what's going on. In fact, the origins of the museum are from Hot Rod Magazine. Robert E. Petersen, who was hired to do a show, to promote a show for a guy named Madman Muntz, who was one of those arm-waving, screaming guys on TV that was selling big appliances. And he hired Bob Petersen to promote it. Petersen put a book together and would as a promo piece, and was going to all of these guys, all the hot rod guys, to put what they were making, the products in there in the book. And then when he was done with the show, he thought, wait a minute, there's something here. So, from 1948, by the early 50s, Bob Petersen was a millionaire and was trying to sell the hot rod stuff in Detroit, and then they wouldn't buy it. Okay, I'll start, let's Motor Trend. Anyway, so that was, and we were all caught up in it. We'd go to the drag races, the road races, you named it. That was what you did on the weekend.
Well, Terry, I mean, you had the unique opportunity to watch all of this like motorsports history unfold.
Right.
Did you have an immediate appreciation for it at a young age? Did you know like how cool all this stuff was, or was it just something that everybody was doing where you're at?
The car thing was in my blood. When we were in Illinois as little kids, my grandmother would take us to midget races. And granddad bought Oldsmobiles, had 18 Oldsmobiles, and dad bought Buicks. So it, you know, even in the cold, I was out washing the car because I wanted it to be, you know, clean. And that some of the biggest things we did were, you know, as little kids, is that going to the Chicago Auto Show to look at the new cars. You know, cars were a part of our life from the beginning. You know, and it was Dad who took us to the races, the road races, and you know, hell, he'd spend all week organizing the picnic that we were going to have while we were there. Take the station wagon to go out, and you know, we didn't have any money, so but we'd take all the neighbor kids too, and everybody get under a blanket in the back of the car so we could sneak in. And you know, we didn't have the dough for the tickets, but we were sure they were having fun.
Yeah. So as you're growing up and you're watching, you know, guys like Parnelli and George Fulmer
Yep.
and Bernie race, you know, was it something that you wanted to be involved in? Could you see that far ahead, or was it just entertainment at that point?
The thing that was interesting for me was that I loved the whole idea. In fact, at the Torrey Pines race, the smell of Castrol, the bean oil, and the sight of the cars, the sound of the cars, everything was there, and it was magic to me. This was something, and I remember leaving the track that day and telling my dad, I'm sitting in the back seat, pounding on his back, Dad, we got to do this. We got to do this. And nothing ever interested me like that. And when I was 30, I remember sitting on my front porch. I'd been in the theme park entertainment business with good jobs at Disneyland, SeaWorld, and Marine World, thinking, nah, this ain't it. And I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. And I just like, wow, what am I going to do? I can't spend my life doing this. And then I had a thought, wow, I got to figure it out. So, all right, if I die tomorrow, what am I going to really be pissed off about having missed in my life? And right then the light went on. It's like the only pictures I had ever had in my offices in the parks was of race cars. That's it. I got to be in with cars. And I bought a car, a sports car, a little race car, and quickly found out I didn't have enough money to do it right, and that I didn't want to be racing with amateurs. So I thought, well, what do I do to be involved at the level that I'd really like to be? And it was, I know how to sell sponsorship. So I started introducing myself to teams, and you know, I ended up working with Gallus Craco and Bobby Ray Hall and Al Jr. were there. I went up and introduced myself to Dan Gurney, and we ended up working with Dan, and we put a Toyota deal together for him. I got the Budweiser contract to run race promotion for Bud for a couple of years, and you know, but it was by what I really figured out was that I was a marketing guy. I was not a tech guy. I didn't, you know, I don't know a crank from a piston. So, but I know how to sell sponsors or convince people at that time to get involved. Worked with the Cord family from EL Cord, that is his grandson. Some of the nicest people I've ever met, and we made a Budweiser deal. Cars built by a hot rodder named Doane Spencer. I don't know if you've ever heard of Doane, but he was regarded as one of the purest, best of the metal benders. In fact, he's got the Doane Spencer hot rod. In fact, is owned by Bruce Meyer, our vice chairman, and it's considered the holy grail of hot rods. It was the first one to put the side pipes through the body. You know, he put the decal boat shield, boat windshield on to use it as a
was like
pre-Winfield.
Oh
yeah, 1947.
All that. Oh wow. Okay, so this is really early.
Oh yeah, but then I got it at Gurney's. I worked with Phil Remington, who was singly probably one of the most amazing. He was, you remember Phil in Ford versus Ferrari?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get the credit that he really deserved in that. Those cars won Le Mans because Phil Remington figured out how to not make them, not just change the brakes and that, but how to make them fast, and did all that engineering. In fact, he told me one day, he said that Henry Ford was so involved in it, he would on weekends go open the foundries for them to make pour their own blocks. I mean, these guys, and this was all Remington. And Remington was part of a group, and I can't remember the name of the group, but of the early pioneer hot rodders in LA. I mean, the best of the best guys. And when you hear the guys that were in it, it's like, oh my God, we're not worthy.
You're not the first person to tell me about Phil Remington. And I think we all know at this point, Hollywood, they take a little bit of artistic license and things like that. But that era of hot rodding in general, it just, people had to be so innovative and creative with the way that they were using parts. But I want to take a step back real quick. You said that you were in the entertainment business, working with Disney. And there's a little bit of like a crossover overlap between those two portions of your career, right? Like you were explaining it to me just a little bit before we got on camera. Something to do with the movie Cars. Can you touch on that?
Oh, when we redid when we did the transformation of the museum, we got involved with Pixar. In fact, in 2014, we honored John Lasseter, really the creator, founder, and a pure car guy himself. In fact, one of the things when we honor people here at the museum, we make these trophies, but the trophy is a steering wheel mounted on something. And when we honored John, he came up and picked up his trophy and he says, I got Oscars, but this is more bitching. So, I mean, okay, we're there, we're together. But there was on the movie Cars 3, it came out and we had made a Pixar room literally in the museum, in the kids' room, and built a life-size version of Lightning McQueen. So it was but what's really great about that is when the little kids come into the museum, you walk up and they walk in and hug Lightning McQueen. I mean, it's so cool as an image. But I got some calls from some friends saying, "Hey, it's really cool. You got a car. You're in the picture. You got a car in the picture." I said, "What are you talking about? I don't know. You don't know what you're talking about." Anyway, whatever. I'm not paying attention. After about 7 or 8 calls, I called Jay Ward at Pixar, who was really the guy who was the brand ambassador and the one who keeps everything in real. You're not going to get too far afield from telling things about cars that aren't true and that anyway. And then he was also building the relationships with all the personalities that ended up anyway.
How cool is that?
My name is spelled Karges, and he put me in as Terry Karges, GAS. Anyway, and it's so I'm a hero with my grandsons.
Terry, have you ever noticed that, like in those Cars movies, whether it's the actor that's voicing the character or car, it kind of looks like him? Did your car look like you?
Oh no, I know it's much better looking than me. I get to.
Right on, man. Well, hey, so we were taking a step back. I want to fast forward to when you took over operations at the Petersen. From what I understand, you came in at a little bit of an interesting time, and I want to ask you a question. And you don't have to get too in depth if you don't want to, but from what I understand, you came in and it was a weird time because they were not only getting ready to do all those renovations that you're talking about, just a total redesign and creating the very recognizable visage that there is today. But they were also selling off a bunch of cars. But from what I understand, they weren't exactly like cars that would be displayed, but people were a little bit confused by it, and there might have been some criticism about it. What can you tell us?
I'm glad you brought that up. There's a couple of things there. One, when I was brought in, there were no plans to do anything. I was brought in August of 2012, And that was based on Bruce Myers had decided that something needed to change at the museum. In fact, as I was being interviewed, one of the guys was telling me, "Oh, this is such a prestigious job, and this is such a prestigious place." And I'm thinking, I'm coming out of I was in the theme park business where this place is about as big as one ride, and I've shopped the place on my own quietly, and the bathrooms are dirty. You haven't changed the exhibits in 20 years. What are you talking about? And I thought, with my entertainment background and my racing background and what I had done, and that mix might help me come in and make some changes. But the idea of bringing me in was to begin to make changes. So I was brought in August. Actually, my first week was magic here, just because I came in, worked a couple of days, drove north on Wednesday of the week to go up to Monterey for the Pebble Beach Car Week. And on Sunday, I'm sitting in the 1952 Ferrari Barchetta that was owned by Henry Ford, getting a trophy on the stand. I'm thinking, well, pretty cool. We can do this.
Yeah, a little bit.
in January of 2013, a few months later, Peter Mullen came in. David Sidoric, one of our vice chairs, and had been a board member from the opening day, had decided the building exterior was ugly and needed to change, and found an architect in Italy at a show, said, "You need to come to Los Angeles and take a look at this." And so when Gene Cohn came to LA in November of 2012, David said, "Look, you need to come up with a design that says speed and motion. We can't build a new museum. That's not going to happen." So, and really in just a very few short weeks, Gene Cohn came back with a design which is literally the exterior of the building now. And we almost changed nothing from the original concept and drawings to what we ended up building. So with that design, David Sidoric and Bruce went to Peter Mullen and said, "Peter, you need to come in as chairman to lead the campaign to help transform the museum." And Peter looked at the design and he said, "I'm in."
Was there ever any pushback with that design? Because it's so eccentric, and it's fantastic now because it's so recognizable, but it's kind of out there. So when they first pitched that design, was there
it's funny, there were two critics, LA Times architectural critic and a local public radio critic, slammed us. Everybody else fell in love with it. It's an iconic, in fact, one of the great compliments I got was on opening day. A TV commercial producer called me and he said, "I'm doing an international commercial with Katy Perry for Toyota. It's not going to air in the US, but it's supposed to be Katy in Los Angeles in these iconic spots. And you got one of the most iconic buildings in LA. Would you mind if we filmed in front of it?" I said, "That's why we did it. Here we are."
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But we spent, like I say, $95 million. What happened with the sale of the cars is that when I came here, we had about 415 cars, and we get a lot of donations each year of cars that Grandpa passed away, send them the Buick, Grandpa passed away, send them the Olds, the Chevy or the whatever. And but we decided that to jumpstart the fundraising part of what we were doing and to generate enough capital to be able to get started on our project, we were going to sell some cars, most of which were not going to be important or major cars. But also, every one of the cars that we sold, we looked at carefully and said, "We have friends who have that very car. If we need one for an exhibit, we can replace it. We'll get another one. It won't deter us from our mission." And what happened was that a young former college student, I won't name the name of the college, but he was here as an intern, and he decided that what we were going to do was wrong. So he called a friend of his former roommate at the school, and who was now a truck mechanic in Iowa, and said, what they're doing is wrong. We need to stop this. So here you go. This was early wokeism of cancel culture before the term was used. And so they wrote 10 letters to automotive editors saying, this is wrong. Here's what they're doing is wrong. And so the automotive editors disregarded it as, okay, well, shut up, kid. However, the business writer at the LA Times decided, I got a Pulitzer coming from this. I'm going to take these guys down. What they're doing wrong. So he went to art museums and asked the art museums if what we were doing is wrong, and they said, "Oh, well, the way they're doing it is wrong. If what you're telling us is correct." Nothing of what he was telling anybody was correct. What we were doing was perfectly ethical. These cars had been de-accessioned so that we could sell them through the proper process. It ended up being a top of the fold front page LA Times story about what we're doing. He called the DA on us and told them what we're doing. The DA came in, had all the paperwork and everything set up on the table. They said, okay, we're here to investigate what's going on. Here it is. About a half an hour later, they said, that's it. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
Wow.
But it was a story in search of a writer, and actually he's no longer at LA Times, and he's editing a small truck magazine somewhere in the Midwest. But it was really, we were treated badly and undeservedly, and it's what, if you want to, yellow journalism is not fun for anybody.
Well, unfortunately, that happens all too often. In fact, we've had people the likes of Jeff Smith on the show to talk exactly about ethics and how that plays a role in what we do. But all one needs to do is take a look at your guys' website now or before, walk through the halls of your building to know that place is run by car people, and there is so much respect for automotive history in that building that there wasn't anything unethical going on. But I appreciate you answering that question and clearing it up for us.
It's one of those things that people, it lingers in the distance, but it's one of those things that I think we have more than demonstrated that we're sincere car people. We have so greatly expanded our educational programming and our archives. We finally acquired the original Petersen archives, 10 million photos of automotive history from the 40s through the 70s. We invested with SEMA $1 million to take 10% of it and digitize it and make it available for everybody.
That's awesome.
We've spent a fortune on providing. This year we've reached over 100,000 school kids with programming. So it's talk about giving back and wanting to be a good neighbor, but also a good custodian of car culture. We do, before we closed, we'd done 100 car events for every corner of the car world. In fact, I was on the phone this morning trying to see if there's anything we can do to help the Grand National Roadster Show, which just announced they won't be able to run this year. And, we're going to do a hot rod cruise in August, but we can't get anything going, in time to do anything about that. But it's who we are. We probably have one of the best hot rod collections in the world. We got 9 amber cars, an incredible collection of custom cars, including the James Hetfield cars. A great story about how that came to be. But one of those, we love sports cars, we love race cars, we love customs, we love lowriders. One of the best shows we've ever done here was lowriders. We had the biggest attendance for a turn and an opening ever. But at the same time, we'll celebrate Enzo Ferrari's birthday, get 300 Ferraris. Celebrate Carroll Shelby's birthday, get 300 Cobras and Mustangs. Celebrate Tuner Day, 2,500 cars show up. What?
How good is that? guess I shouldn't be surprised. Like I said earlier, Southern California, this is the spot for hot rodding, and it originated, and now it's like culminated there. I'm curious, you guys, how many vehicles are in the building, including the top secret vault?
Well, the collection with motorcycles is 366 cars, and then we have another 155 roughly upstairs in exhibits in the 11 galleries. So, it's car heaven if you like cars, and a pretty good selection of bikes as well. In fact, one of the fun things that just happened is that a friend of ours, I'm involved in professional motorcycle road racing, and a friend of ours from Yamaha was talking about they were going to do something with the collection of all their championship bikes. And I said, hey, over here, we just got Yamaha championship super bikes. And so we're going to set up a special display that'll be in the vault.
Are they going to have who's it, Jorge Lorenzo's bike from what?
No, he's Jorge's MotoGP.
Oh, okay.
This is US Moto America Superbike.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Hey, I'm curious. So when you came in, like you said, you guys when the sale of those vehicles were happening, it was cars that were never going to be displayed. And then,
well, there were some there were some real quality cars. Some real, a number of Ferraris and a Bugatti Veyron. The Veyron was the first car in the U.S. and it was the one that was at the LA Auto Show on the stump. What you didn't know is that at that time it was also costing about $35,000 a year just to maintain it. That's now about $60,000. So let's not call us a poor brother in the car business, but we it was just simply too expensive.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you about. With all those cars there, what's the maintenance like on them, and what's that whole process look like? Do you guys have a shop that's inside the building? How many maintainers do you guys have? What does that look like?
The interesting, and it's a great question. The last area of the museum to really be renovated was the shop, the workshop, and it used to drive me crazy because it looked like an old shop. It's like, come on, we're voted world's best automotive museum. We got a junk shop down here. That's not right. So a fellow that came in and made a donation, we now have what I would call a world-class Formula One race shop.
Wow.
And in fact, we've actually now lined up a number of race cars in the shop as a part of our display, but it's a showcase now, and really very proud of it. But I guess the thing that when you look at what is the shop and how do we maintain the cars, we only have two techs. One of them is I would call him damn near a genius. And he came to us from running his own independent deal, and he's from like Bosnia, and his sister wrote him from New York saying there's an ad in the looking for a tech at the museum, because at the time we didn't even have one, and he came in, and it was funny because the guy who runs the collection said, okay, I'll tell you what, as a test, we were donated this Porsche. It's been to 5 Porsche shops. Nobody can make it run. See if you can make it run. Well, the next day he called the guy out in the car, they're idling. I said, what? He said, no, if you do this and this and this. But he's also one of these guys who is a real hot rodder, and it's especially coming from the old country. You didn't have a shop where you could go get a car to get it fixed, or the tech equipment to do it. You'd have to figure out how to make it work on your own. And so he's a magician on this. And then he's got a young apprentice that works with him that he brought in. And we have another, actually Dana Williamson, who runs the collection, is an MIT grad and a real hot rod guy himself, car guy. So 3 guys really responsible for taking care of the cars and keeping them running. Because not all of the cars run. We don't take, they don't go out.
So you mean you can't just go down to AutoZone and get some parts for a Duesenberg?
Generally speaking, no. But the other part of that is that we're about to take about 8 cars and go run them on the open road, and put some real speed on them and videotape that, because we think nobody's ever seen the Steve McQueen Jag XKSS run angrily on the highway, or a Duesenberg Model J, running flat out on the highway. So we're going to take about 8 cars in a procession up the coast and go have some fun with it. But that's that's like, talk about a toy shop.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Hey, Terry, I had to kind of curb my enthusiasm when you brought it up just a moment ago, because I didn't want to get there too fast. But a question I do have is, when you came in, you said you helped usher in a lot of changes, and one of those was, it sounds to me like doing a little bit more high profile exhibits. How'd you do that, and what's that process like now when you're curating the collection?
Actually, one of the very first things I did when I got here was actually within the first week, was make a phone call to a guy that I really admired, who was a PR guy, Dan Kahn, who's a pure hot rodder himself, on the board at SEMA, and really gets car culture, is like I say, a pure enthusiast and one of the most talented guys. And then and actually also, because of our board of directors, we've greatly expanded the board now over the past, say, 5, 6, 7 years. But because we have some great contacts, and we now have 11 exhibit spaces that we can display these exhibits, it becomes one of those things where, wow, we can do anything. We can tell any story we want to. So getting together and coming up with these ideas that we get to come up with, but also some suggestions from the board of directors. It's like, wow. Like when we opened the Bruce Meyer Gallery, it was a metallic, it was something metallic. It was all silver cars, but it wasn't just silver cars. It was the best of the best in silver cars. His next one was Seeing Red, all red Ferraris. It goes on. Right now in the Meyer Gallery is the Hetfield collection. But in a production gallery, we're working with Volkswagen on how do you build cars. We've got a Le Mans exhibit with Porsche. We've got an off-road exhibit in our hot rod gallery. We've got some of the most exotic electric cars in our alternative power gallery. In the motorsports gallery, Chip Ganassi has been really wonderful with us. We've got 3 Indy cars, 3 NASCAR cars, and 3 sports cars, the stuff that he ran Le Mans with and won. It goes on and on. Upstairs, we're doing a supercar exhibit now with the origins of the supercars. When we get reopened, we're going to do on the current supercars. And then probably across the street, the Academy of Motion Pictures Museum is going to open in October. We've got an opportunity to do a James Bond exhibit with all the Bond cars and a bunch of other movie, memorabilia. And so you sit down and you think, what do we want to talk about next? What's the next story or area of interest that we might be able to show? The lowrider exhibit. That's how actually helped cement the James Hetfield cars coming to the museum.
Well, really, all of these people that are part of car culture, whether you are into lowriders or crazy customs, or just you're a purist, they're all kind of like intermingled. So it makes sense that to have all those different sections represented in one building, and it sounds like just like I'd be a kid in a candy store.
Absolutely, and that's the fun part, is that all of those galleries change every year. so that depending, not all at once, you got to rotate it through, so that anytime you come back, and we have people coming back 2, 3, 4 times a year now, and seeing new things in the museum, that's really fun. That's really changed a lot. When I got here, 70% of the people were coming in for the first time. That you weren't getting repeat visits because that there were 2 galleries and they changed once a year, and it wasn't that interesting. Now we have a greatly expanded curatorial team that are coming up with these stories, but also doing some great research on it, so we tell a better story. Then they take that information and they turn that over to the education department, and they turn it into school tours and school information that we provide, worldwide. Our marketing team, there's one of the keys to where we are now is we have a marketing team that's driven by a young guy named Michael Bodell. And when you talk about car stories and car guys and how do you know, when I first met his mother, she was telling me that Michael, when he was a little boy, wouldn't read. So she started buying him car magazines. And then she found that he was reading them until they were ragged, every word. And he's like an encyclopedia now. But he was 26 and I made him deputy director of the museum. This is a purist. This guy is cars all day, all the time. So now he's deputy director, COO, but also drives the marketing team. And all of the online stuff that you've seen, all the content, has all been driven and created by Michael. I mean, this is, and his team, his marketing team. Great team of passionate car people.
I will ask you to fill us in on everything that's going on right now, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you more about the Hetfield collection, because I'm a huge Metallica fan, and I understand that there's an interesting story there. Can you please elaborate on that?
I got a call from a fellow, Ray. Ray called. Okay, Ray. Hi, I work with James Hetfield, and we're thinking of breaking up the collection. And James is done building the cars now, and he's thinking of that maybe people ought to see them because they're up in storage up here in the East Bay. And I thought about it, and I asked him, I said, why are you breaking up the collection? Why would you do that? Why don't you give us the collection and we'll open an exhibit on it? And when we're done with the exhibit, we'll put it on tour to museums around the country. Then everybody will see it. And he thought, wow, that might be something that James is interested in. So they ended up coming down and to see the museum and tour. And we start always on the 3rd floor and see everything up there, and then the 2nd floor and 1st floor. And the last thing that we did on the tour was to visit the lowrider exhibit. There were only 3 cars in there, but the walls were filled with art by lowrider artists that wanted to participate in the lowrider exhibit. They were really intrigued and, hey, I want my stuff in there. So we had people that painted toilet seats and barbecues and roller skates and you name it. A paint gun was pinstriped so beautifully, it's art. And all the stuff was on the walls. And we're about to leave, and we come around this wall, the last wall that James is going to look at, and there's a photograph with 4 guys in it. And he's looking at the photo. He says, "Those are my guys." I said, he says, "They did all my tats. Those are my guys." And it was one of those moments where it all came together. Wait a minute, we're here for everybody. This is we get what this is. We get what you're doing. We appreciate what you're doing, and we want to honor it. And we want to honor everybody that's part of car culture. And that was something that was decided really early on when I first got here. I told everybody here and Dan Kahn Media, we want everyone that is a part of car culture to feel that this is their museum. So we want to create something every year, once a year at least, for everybody. So that when they come here, they're saying, nope, I'm home. And we're still learning all about that. I mean, I was on PCH the other day, and that there was a line of about a half a mile line of slammed mini trucks cruising, and these things are real beat. But these guys are so proud of their cars. And I'm thinking, I still got a lot to learn. I didn't know about these guys, but look at this. These are kids that are so happy, having so much fun. But the Hetfield deal was, and then James came down and opened the exhibit and did a Q&A. He was wonderful. I mean, the place was packed.
You hit the nail on the head, Terry. I mean, when you think about just American culture, not even just car culture, they're so intertwined. I mean, with the advent of the interstate highway system and just the rise of the big three.
Yeah.
I mean, these cars, just from a historical standpoint, they should be preserved. They should be on display for people to learn about, because at the end of the day, yeah, they're a mode of transportation and a means of conveyance, but they're also art. I mean, in that Hetfield collection, you have several builds by Rick Dorr. Just you look at it and it's like, it looks like a giant sculpture. You wouldn't, if you didn't know it was a car, you would think it was a sculpture. It's so beautiful.
They really are. In fact, the one, James is so proud of it that he gave us a turntable that he said, no, this car has to be on a turntable. It has to be presented on a turntable as art. And they all are. And we've got several of them on, actually most of them on platforms presented as art. I mean, that's what they are.
How cool is that? Hey, yeah. Terry, back to what you were mentioning earlier about your marketing team and everything that they're doing. What's going on right now with the whole shutdown? How can people see this stuff that we're talking about? I mean, these times are unprecedented, but you guys are making it happen for people. Can you tell us about that?
Sign up, go to petersen.org, our website, and sign up to get on our mailing list. And we'll send you several times a week or a couple times a week all of the things that you can, all the videos that we're producing. We started, it was a really ironic timing. 3 weeks before the shutdown in March, we had presented to the board of directors that we wanted to make a huge investment in online content, that we wanted to go digital and go big. And part of it was we need to build an audience outside of LA. As a consequence of that, right now, 60% of the viewers are from out of the country. But we things like when Monterey Car Week was shut down, we created our own digital Monterey Car Week. We're doing digital or virtual car cruise-ins now from all over the world. We've got another virtual car cruise-in coming, and you can submit your cars, and you don't have to be a member or anything else by January 21st. 2-minute video of you doing a walk around, explaining, introducing your car to the world, and we'll put it up.
How cool is that?
And then the other thing that we're doing that is really unique is that we're visiting a number of the very best and largest and most exclusive car collections in the world and putting those up. We've shot over 140 of them already. So there's a huge, I guess, an archive for you to be able to go into and take a look at this stuff. It's phenomenal, the stuff that's out there. And these guys, the owners, are really proud of their cars, and you'll never see this stuff. You'll never see these collections anywhere. So that's really been driving it.
So those are things that people can expect to see if they sign up for your newsletter.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's in our web too. Go to petersen.org and you'll find where to go on all of it. But this has been a remarkable achievement by our guys, because the amount of content that's being developed is incredible, and nobody's ever done it before.
Yeah, you guys really were dynamic and pivoted at a time when you needed to, and it shows. If people wanted to be more involved, like say donate, is there a way for them to do that as well?
Hallelujah, brother. Great question. Yes, there is. Petersen.org. Go to that or call the museum. Call me. I can help walk you through anything that you might be interested. $10 is if that's what you've got and you want to help us with that, we are very proud and very happy, to take that. We've got people that are capable at various parts of their life and their history that have different capabilities, but anything helps, and it's all greatly appreciated.
Definitely. And that was at that website one more time, Terry?
Petersen.org. Now it's Peter, S-E-N, Petersen, .org.
Petersen. So everybody who's watching, if you're into cars, check it out. Consider making a donation if you can. Terry, before we let you go, I want to ask a couple more questions. Over the years, you guys have had some, wild cars there, super famous cars. You mentioned the Steve McQueen Jag. I know you guys have had the Magnum PI, that Ferrari 308 GT.
Yeah.
And just out of all those cars and all those exhibits, which exhibit has been your favorite, and which car has been your favorite?
Actually, pretty easy on that one. The McQueen Jag at XKSS, and this goes right back into hot rodding. We go right back into hot rodding. McQueen was a hot rodder. He loved bikes. He loves cars, anything that goes fast. He owned this Jag twice. It was white when he first owned it, and he sold it to Bill Hara at the famous Hara collection up in Reno. Bought it back, painted it British Racing green, but he had Von Dutch do the dashboard, and Tony Nancy did the leather interior.
No way.
Yeah, so you got three iconic hot rod car people. Tony Nancy was a Top Fuel driver and then created a huge leather business, and Von Dutch was Von Dutch. And McQueen was McQueen. So that car probably, and as a valuable car, it's extraordinary, but it's what I say, we have the 1948 first ever badged Ferrari. Cool car, but it doesn't have the coolness of the McQueen Jag. I mean, come on. And then as an exhibit, I would say Lowriders was a real high point. The Bugatti, the art of Bugatti, there was a story about the family of Bugatti, 3 generations. But we had there was a chance meeting. Bruce Meyer and I were here in the museum one day walking through, and this board of directors, the Porsche board of directors, had a meeting here. It was on the day before the opening of the LA Auto Show about 4 or 5 years ago. And these guys came walking out, and one of the guys was Wolfgang Porsche. Well, we introduced ourselves, and I don't know how car people go, but within about 15 minutes, everybody had their phones out, showing them, hey, here's my favorite car. Here's my car collection. And Wolfgang's right there with you, like 16 years old. Everybody was having fun, all talking the same language enthusiastically. And we came down the stairs, and there was an exhibit, the Art of Bugatti, the family story was the exhibit there. And we looked down, we said, we should do this for you. We should do this for Porsche. And he looked back at his guys and he said, let's do this. So a couple of years later, we did the 70-year history, the 70-year anniversary of Porsche with their help. And we ended up having over 50 Porsches in the museum. And the very first one, just the first Le Mans winner, everything you could imagine, great storytelling. And Wolfgang Porsche became an honorary board member. So
wow.
I would have to say, and Porsche was the first car I ever crashed. My dad had a 59. I'm so good. I was on the Santa Ana Freeway, the old Santa Ana Freeway, going to what is now the Newport Freeway. It didn't exist then. It was Newport Boulevard, but there was a big S-turn to get off, and it was raining. And I thought, I'm in my dad's Porsche. I can do it. I wadded that thing up all the way to the windshield, drove it to the guardrail. So I got picked up by this tow truck, and they'd take me down to what was then Chick Iverson Porsche in Newport Beach. I picked the car up the day that it was done in the shop and crashed it again that badly right up to the windshield.
Oh my God.
The tow truck driver who came to pick me up was the same guy. And he gives me 4 business cards and he says, "You want to hold on to these, kid. You're going to need these."
Oh my God.
Anyway,
I bet that was a pretty like terrible experience,
oh
but good Lord.
So I've slowed down a little since then.
Yeah.
I was 16 and invincible.
Yeah. Hey, Terry, what are you guys doing with your social media? Can people find you anywhere on Instagram, Facebook, things like that?
Yes, all of them, and it's all Petersen Automotive Museum. I can't give you the right whatever the codes were or whatever, but look for Petersen Automotive Museum. You'll find us.
Okay,
And
so check that out for you guys.
The information is really incredible. There's some great stuff in there, and some really wonderful people participating with us to make it happen. You asked earlier about how does this stuff get done and the exhibits and that. We're now at a point where, because we've done a lot with and worked with a lot of different collectors, they're honored to have their cars here. We treat them nicely. We're very careful and meticulous and the things, the way we handle the cars, but also that a lot of people get to see them, and so calling to find great cars that would work in an exhibit to tell a particular story. You're still on the phone looking for them because they're all over the world, but and that's another part of the fun of what we're doing. Find unique cars that tell a particular story, and it's what we get to do every day.
Terry, I completely spaced, and I totally almost forgot to ask you about the vault. Everybody that I talk to about the Petersen, they always say, see if you can get into the vault. See if when you go down there, if they'll give you a tour of the vault. What is the vault and what's in there?
One of the things that when I got here, the museum has 3 floors above ground. The 3rd floor was where we had the administrative offices, all the business offices, and a huge kiddie play area and some storage. The 2nd floor had 2 big galleries, and then the 1st floor was a diorama that hadn't changed in 20 years. And I think it was the 2nd day I was here. One of the marketing guys was giving me a tour through the vault, and the very last thing that my predecessor said to me was, "You're going to get requests all the time for what about the vault? I want to go see the vault." just ignore it. It's just the storage area. So I'm down there and we're walking through, and the guy's telling me, I said, "Tell me about these cars." "Well, this is this and this is this," and then it's blowing my mind. I mean, really that's that, and I kept thinking, oh my God, this is nirvana. I mean, what? So it was. I came in August. I said to the team, I said, "Look, I want to try an experiment, and maybe we'll do it over Christmas holidays. Let's open the vault and give tours. Let's open in Thanksgiving and do tours and see how it works. If it works, maybe we can carry it over to Christmas." So I was reading a notice that about 3 or 4 days before from one of the guys. There was just a notice in between, and they were talking to themselves, "Hey, we don't have enough time to do this, so we're not going to worry about it right now, and let's talk about it later." And then, "What are you talking about? No, get the thing open." We didn't get it open for Thanksgiving, but we made it for Christmas. So we made an announcement. Hey, look, we're going to open the vault during the Christmas holidays to see if people are interested. Oh my God. I stayed in the admissions desk for the whole 2 weeks of Christmas holiday. We had people flying in from Ohio, from San Francisco, from all over the country. "I heard the vault is open. I get to go see the vault." And okay. So it seemed like, okay, this is a no-brainer. And we actually ended up, it's become the most popular thing in the museum, huge revenue source for us. We give tours through, although now during COVID, when we reopen, you can't have people gathering. So we've got it set up so that you tour on your own, and we'll give you a recorded version of the cars that you're seeing. But there's 300 cars down there. Yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal.
Was it like prior to that, was it just like a storage area? What was it?
Storage area, and it was dark, and floor's dirty, not dirty, but it was, I mean, it's been it's an old building, and not good lighting, and yet there's all these incredible cars. And so I was thinking, oh, we can't do it, and we got to do it lighting, we got to do this, we got to do that. And I thought, no, it's a vault. I mean, it's a storage area. Let people go see it the way it is. And that became the hot property. Since then, now we've gone downstairs, we've painted the ceiling so we can give it more light, added quality lighting, painted everything. And it's much more organized now. So it's easier to really be able to identify the cars, and, you're not missing as many cars because it's sensory overload, when you've got so many cars surrounding you, and they're so close together. We've got them spread out now, though, so it's more of a showcase. But it's like I say, it's car nirvana, and is now the most popular thing that we do in the museum day to day.
Terry, before we let you go, can you tell us about? Can you give us an inside scoop on any future exhibits, things that are happening digitally? You touched on a few earlier, but can we?
Digital is going to continue, and we're building more and more content based on more and more collections, private collections, and we're inviting. We want to get Jeff Beck to open his garage in the UK.
Awesome.
Working with Roy Brizio, who I'm sure you know who.
Of course, yeah.
Roy, you got to let us get in Clapton's collection. I mean, he's got an amazing collection. Billy Gibbons at ZZ Top. We've got Billy's Slam Pala is here, and Cadzilla is here. But hey, Billy, will you do a video for us? We want to get the rockers and the celebrity guys in now as a part of that. But in terms of the new exhibits, we're working on one. There's a fellow who started building electric cars, and then he kind of got in the space business, and we're working to see if we can't get an exhibit on him and what he's done. I won't mention any names, but and then as I mentioned, we will have not unquestionably the most complete and best supercar exhibit ever put on when we finally get reopened. As I mentioned before, the James Bond exhibit, that'll coincide with the opening of the Academy of Motion Pictures Museum across the street. And that there's a number of other exhibits that are being discussed. We're going to improve our motorcycle exhibits. We believe and we hope that the Roger Penske collection of race cars will be next after Ganassi. That seems to be coming together. So yeah, it's kind of business as usual now, if you will, but we're reaching the world digitally now and virtually.
We have to adapt and overcome. So one last time, Mr. Karges, it's Petersen.org.
Petersen.org, S-E-N, Peter, S-E-N.
Everybody go check out Petersen.org. Become a part of it, and make a donation, post up your car, sign up for their newsletter. Terry, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming on and just giving us some background on your personal history and the renovations that have happened and the Petersen Museum. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Believe me, I love this, and you guys are great. Wonderful show. Thank you so much.
We'll talk to you next time. Man, Greg, what a wild interview. It was really a privilege and an honor to speak to Terry. I mean, he's been such an integral part in the renovation of the Petersen. Like he mentioned, before he came on, I believe it was 8 years ago, things were a little bit different over there. And now it's just, it's become this landmark destination in Southern California car culture. It's awesome.
Yeah. And he has a car named after him in Cars.
Yeah. How cool is that, dude?
That's awesome. I mean,
it's funny, right? Like, so he worked for Disney for like all those years. And then after he worked for Disney, his name ends up in a Cars movie.
And I gotta bust on you guys real quick. Both of you are talking about how beautiful and warm and everything is in Southern California. And yesterday I had to get my engine, my block out of the shop and get it down the mountain. And when I woke up, it was 13 degrees.
Good Lord.
13 degrees. So enjoy your awesome.
You guys gotten any snow?
No, we actually haven't, not since right before New Year's. It's just freezing cold.
Dude,
but on the upside, I can run my hoist over the dirt because the dirt is frozen.
Well, there's your silver lining, my friend. No, that's cool. Hey, speaking of, you were out of the office quite a bit last week. No, on Tuesday this week.
Well, no, I've last week and this week.
Yeah. And where'd you go on Tuesday?
Well, Tuesday I took my engine block down to Beck Racing Engines down in Phoenix to have it machined, for the LS50 thing.
Oh yeah.
And I got to drop it off and then get an awesome tour of his shop. And there's some very fun stuff in that shop.
Dude, how excited were you when you were dropping that engine off, and how stoked was he to be helping you on it?
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, this thing's been like 2 years in the making, more than 2 years. So, I mean, yeah, it's really exciting. And it was a little ghetto how I got it down there. It was in the back of my SUV. So I was a little scared. Went a little overboard on the ratchet straps because I thought, if I get in any kind of accident, this thing becomes a projectile.
Dude, the Junkyard LS is like the hallmark of the broke boy hot rodder. So I think you were in good company.
Yeah, but I've even thought about putting the LS into that. That would be ridiculous, and it would just make people.
In your Explorer?
Angry. In the Explorer, yeah, like that would just be hilarious.
Did they offer the 302 in the Explorer?
I believe they did.
That would be kind of cool.
Actually, in the 94, yeah, they did. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it would be ridiculous, and it would just, I don't know. I think that might not be the right call, but it would be funny.
What's the actual like liters of displacement that's going to be in that thing, or no, the actual engine size that it'll end up being? Will it be a 302?
It's gonna, I think, be a 305.23 or something. It comes out to 5.007 liters.
Okay, 5.007 liters.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah,
Project 007. That's cool.
But so that was fun. But then before that, last week I was out at the Engine Performance Expo.
Yeah, that's right. How'd that go?
That was.
You already cranked out an article kind of recapping what happened, huh?
Yeah. There's actually 3 of them up on Engine Labs right now.
Dude, you are a dynamo.
But I mean, brain melting. And the really cool thing is it's all still available. Like if you go to the engineperformanceexpo.com, you can go back and watch everything. Like it's not gone. It's going to be up for, I want to say 60 days. I got to go back and check because I just talked to Lake Speed this morning about it.
It was a 3-day seminar, but what was your favorite part of the whole thing?
I mean, Billy Godbold's talks, always awesome, right? Ben Strader, of course, awesome. But I honestly think it goes to the John Causey segment where he talks about homemade tools.
Very cool.
I know that sounds ridiculous that you have John Causey and you talk about homemade tools, but his genius isn't just in cylinder head work or engine building. His genius extends to the shop, and it's a practical genius. And there are some really cool tools that you can make just with scraps around your around.
I was going to say this is a little bit more advanced than just using like a screwdriver as a cam install tool.
I mean, it's pretty cool. Like he's built some really goofy things that you look at and you're like, what is this? And then he shows you how it works. And you're like, you should patent that and sell it. And he just made it out of like scrap rebar or whatever.
That's pretty cool, man.
So yeah, that was honestly my favorite. I think that was a lot of people's favorite because judging by the reaction in the chat, that went pretty well.
So that was cool. How did that all work? When you guys had a chat and you guys were able to interact with one another? Was it video? Were you on video? How'd that work?
It was basically, there would be, so for a given thing, there would be a pre-recorded segment that was basically the subject kind of talking about, you know, what we were going to discuss and giving you a primer. And then it cut to a live Q&A with them. They were either in the studio where they were filming all of it, or they were like zoomed in. And then they took live questions from chat.
Very cool.
I had like 4 or 5 of my questions answered.
That's awesome, man.
And that's the thing, like with John Kazi, you know, you get to talk to John Kazi. What do I ask him? Well, what materials did you use with your scrap? Right? Like it was relevant, but no, it was a really good, solid. I mean, there were no lags, I guess.
Yeah. It was just,
I know my first day.
The whole time.
Yeah, the first day I ended it with a sore back because I didn't get out of my chair for 9 hours. Like I was starving. I was like, I didn't want to miss anything. Like, you know, fear of missing out, right?
So in the past, how were those expos conducted? It was all in person, and you'd be sitting in like a room, and
sitting in a room in a chair while somebody was standing, you know, up on a stage or a podium speaking.
How'd you enjoy your experience this time versus then?
It was awesome. Like they did an excellent job with the whole thing. I mean, there were a couple minor technical glitches, but I mean, that's, you know, that's not their fault. It's nothing they did.
You know, just like we were talking to Terry a moment ago, you know, we have to adapt and overcome and find new ways to share information and just get content and info out there for people to consume, because, you know, the learning and the improving and all that stuff, it doesn't stop. You know, people don't stop caring about this. And so I think it's really cool that you're able to do that.
And one thing that kind of surprised me a little bit, one of the big draws of the in-person kind of seminars is all the networking you get to do. I made some new friends, like in chat. Like,
really?
Yeah. Like we were
cool.
talking, and, you know, I saw them popping up on our Instagram all of a sudden, and it was like we made friends. Like,
that's awesome, man.
Like,
were there other? So does this typically cater to like vendors or who?
Oh, this cross section was amazing. I mean, at one point we had some shop teachers in the chat saying, "This is awesome. I'm showing this to my whole class." On Saturday, there were a couple kids that popped in and were like, we were watching this on Thursday and Friday, so I'm watching some more now. We had Dima Elgin, you know, in there, the cam grinder. Yeah. He was in there just hanging out. I mean, Billy and all them were in there. It's a cross section. There were people from all over the world. Some guys were, you know, automotive engine like rebuilders. Some were just enthusiasts. Some were, you know, parts makers. I mean, we had one guy in there that was asking questions because he makes RC parts.
Oh, cool.
Like, but it applies to him, and he learns. Yeah. Right. So to say it aims at any one segment, that's totally unfair to the thing.
Right on, man. Well, hey, like you said, you got 3 articles up already on that experience. Everybody at home, you can go check that out on enginelabs.com. There's all kinds of content constantly going up. Same thing with streetmusclemag.com. Check out powerautomedia.com. Check out all those channels. And of course, like we were mentioning earlier, go to the petersenmuseum.org and make a big fat donation if you can, and help keep those guys open. That way, you know, those kids that Greg was just talking about, they have something to look forward to for years to come. It's important. And with that, I think that's our show today, Greg.
Yep.
Yeah. Unless you got anything for the people.
Not that I can think of.
Cool, man. Well, hey, drop us a like, comment, and subscribe. That comment section is out of control. You guys are always in there making really funny comments. So drop us a comment section. Let us know who you want us to have on the next episode. Let us know who you look forward to seeing. And as always, we'll see you next Friday at noon. Peace out.